Hey, welcome to Daily Friction. If you ever wondered what journaling is all about, why people recommend it, what the benefits are, and how to do it, this here is for you. After coming across many references about journaling in books that I read, I got just as curious about it as you are probably right now. I will share many tips with you that I found in those books, and as always, I will give you the quote of the day at the end. So, what is journaling? Here's an official definition. Journaling is a personal record of occurrences, experiences, and reflections kept regularly. WebMD says, journaling is the act of keeping a record of your thoughts, feelings, insights, and more. It can be written, drawn, or typed. It can be on paper or your computer. So basically anything that you bring to paper or computer regarding your life, what happened, what might happen, how you think and feel about it, this all is journaling. There are no strict guidelines or rules about how to do it. There's no specific form, no specific length. Any writing practice you find suitable for yourself can be regarded as journaling. Some people just start scribbling down some thoughts. Others answer a specific set of questions, and I will give you some ideas later on. The important thing is that a journal is not supposed to be read by other people or even yourself again in the future. Even though, of course, you can reread it, there are no rules against that, but it is actually really solely to express your thoughts and feelings in that very moment. And we will talk about later why that is the important part of it. Even though it is something very personal, the arguably most famous journal is publicly available and read by millions of people every year. It is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. So even the most famous emperor of the Roman Empire and the most powerful person at that time was journaling. But also other people like Leonardo da Vinci, Mark Twain, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, among many others, and of course also the people that I will talk about here, they all have or had a regular journaling practice. So let's talk about why you should too. What are the benefits and why should you do it after all? So you hear it everywhere in the self-development community, and that is for good reason. There's a nice quote that I read. It says, journaling is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. Numerous studies show that there are a wide variety of benefits, such as decreased anxiety and feelings of depression. It's said to be as effective as cognitive behavioral therapy to gain mental clarity. It is also, and especially helpful, to deal with devastating events in your life. It is said to have a similar impact as seeing a therapist or meditation. Eric Jorgensen collects in his book The Almanac of Naval Ravikant Naval's most popular posts and writes, meditation is turning off society and listening to yourself. It only works when done for its own sake. Hiking is walking meditation, journaling is writing meditation, praying is gratitude meditation, showering is accidental meditation, sitting quietly is direct meditation. And then there's also Ethan Kross, who writes in his 2021 published book Chatter about the findings of psychologist James Pennebaker. Over the course of a long and distinguished career, he has shown that simply asking people to write about their most upsetting negative experiences for 15 to 20 minutes to create a narrative about what happened, if you will, leads them to feel better, visit a doctor less, and have healthier immune function. By focusing on our experiences from the perspective of a narrator who has to create a story, journaling creates distance from our experience. We feel less tied to it. So one of the most important aspects of journaling is to create distance to your thoughts and feelings. You disconnect from them. And that in a way, just as you do in the before mentioned examples of talking to a therapist or classic meditation. It's basically the same thing. You learn that the thoughts that come into your mind, this is not you. Those are just thoughts. They come all the time. And you practice that the thoughts are not you. You can decide which thoughts to follow and which thoughts to let go. And basically when you have a journaling exercise, it's kind of the same practice to learn to get your thoughts out. You disconnect from them. It's just like when a friend of yours comes and asks for your advice. It's often easier to give advice to the friend than it would be to give it to yourself, because you have distance to the experience of your friend. So it's easier for you to give him good advice. or easier for you to tell, oh, he should do this in that situation or that. But it's much harder when you are in this situation yourself. In his book, Ethan Kross elaborates on the benefits and different techniques to get this distance between yourself and certain experiences or your emotions in general. Later in the book, he sums it up by writing, "Expressive writing is an effective means of gaining helpful emotional distance." I came across more mentions of journaling in other books, like for example, the self-help classic The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. He describes his favorite benefits of keeping a journal. He says that it's about gaining clarity. Writing down forces you to think through it, to understand it. It's about capturing ideas, also helps you to expand your ideas. Reviewing lessons you had on that day or lessons you wrote in your journal in the past. And it's about acknowledging progress. When you go through past entries, you can see how much progress you have made. Then there's also David H. Wagner. In his book Backbone, he writes that don't skip out on journaling. When you put it in writing, you're going to uncover some stuff about yourself that you won't discover just by thinking about it. The entrepreneur and author Tim Ferriss shows in his book Tools of Titans what his journaling practice looks like, and we will talk about this in a little bit. But first he writes about his morning pages, as he calls them. He uses the term spiritual windshield wipers, a term that he borrowed from a book I haven't read myself yet. It's called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. Tim Ferriss writes, "If you want to be wealthy, as measured in money, time, relationships, ease of sleep or otherwise, spiritual windshield wipers will help you get there with fewer accidents and less headache." He writes later on that morning pages don't need to solve your problems. They simply need to get them out of your head, where they'll otherwise bounce around all day like a bullet ricocheting inside your skull. Could bitching and moaning on paper for 5 minutes each morning change your life? As crazy as it seems, I believe the answer is yes. So I think all those mentioned benefits should give you some inspiration to give it a try for a little while and write in a journal. Now the question is how. How to do this, what's the best way, the easiest, and what should you try to do? As mentioned before, there are no real rules to follow here. There are many different types of journaling, such as gratitude journaling, bullet journaling, creative journaling, and so on. There are always new types and new words that get thrown around. Since there are no rules about how a journal has to look like, there is no fixed number of different kinds of journals. It really is up to you and what works for you. Since it might be a bit difficult for you to sit in front of a blank page and just write, I want to share with you some of the types of journaling that I found interesting myself when I read about them in different books. So for example, you have the goal-orientated journaling. There's author Aubrey Marcus, who writes in his book Own the Day, Own Your Life about his goal-orientated writing routine towards the end of the day. He writes that you want to make sure you set your mission and objective for the following day. Then you want to purge anything you no longer want to carry and memorialize those things you don't want to forget but also don't want to burden your psyche with. So goal-orientated journaling also plays a big role in what you come across in Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy. He writes that many people think journaling is about documenting the past. It can be, but envisioning and strategizing the future will internalize and clarify your goal. So every month, Benjamin Hardy asks himself the following set of questions to formulate goals for the upcoming month. He asks himself, where am I now? So blend out distractions and ask yourself, where am I on my journey? What were the wins from the past 90 days? This question is for a sense of movement and momentum. As you probably know, is the hardest part is to get started. But when you see, hey, I achieved some things last month, then it's easier for you to achieve more things next month. You see, like, I'm not stagnating, I'm moving forward, I'm doing stuff, I'm active, and this keeps you going. Next question is, what are the wins I want from the next 90 days? So specific smaller goals for the immediate future. So you know exactly what to do. Okay, I should do this, I should tackle this, and go for those things. He also asks himself, where do I want to be in 3 years? For the bigger picture, to stay on course, and also where do I want to be in 1 year? Still a bigger picture, but It's much more achievable and it's a bit more clear than the further away 3-year goal. From there, he formulates specific goals. He says, before you begin writing daily, review your goals. This activates the mindset and circumstances to your future self, so that when you begin writing in your journal, you're writing as your future self from their vantage point and perspective. Mr. Hardy thinks that the necessary steps you should take will become more obvious that way. And by the way, he also says that it's totally fine and expected that your plans adjust and maybe even change over time.